let's say you snuck a letter of the alphabet into prison with you. Which one would help you escape best? Well, if you decided P was the move, then I have some bad news for you. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. In theory, yes, it could be used as a tool. Okay, I vibe with the optimism, but in practice, all it's really good for is eating that horrible soup they keep serving. What flavor even is that? Like boot and onion? But anyway, the idea here is simple and very short-lived. You try using the P like a metal spoon to dig your way through the cell wall. Unfortunately, walls are not made of liquid soup. They're usually reinforced concrete, which is something that I think you should have known prior to being locked up. But since you're a silly little guy, you'll be there for months scraping tiny amounts of dust off the surface while the guards walk past wondering why you're polishing the walls so enthusiastically. And even if you had unlimited time, the hole you'd make would barely qualify as a scratch. So P is that letter that gives you hope for about 10 seconds before reality shows up. Number 9. Z. Z is the kind of letter that makes you stare at it for a while whilst trying to figure out if there's some clever use you've missed. Spoiler alert, there isn't. It doesn't dig, it doesn't hook onto anything, it doesn't wedge into gaps. In fact, its very existence is just kind of mystifying in this scenario. If you had enough of them, maybe you might be able to trade them around the prison yard like currency, maybe build up some goodwill with other inmates, perhaps get to know the most powerful gang connected to smuggling people out and do it that way. But when it comes to actually escaping the building, in physical technique, Z contributes nothing. It's a spectator in the escape plan. It'll keep you company whilst you manage to find your own way out. Thanks, Z. Huge help. Not. Number 8. I. Okay, for those of you who hate when I bend logic, you're probably going to hate this one. And I'm not going to lie, like even I can see that the premise for I is so unrealistic on so many levels that it barely qualifies. So firstly, you'd have to somehow sneak a massive L-shaped beam, presumably made of dense building material, into a prison. Right away, I'm asking myself, if you manage to smuggle an object of that proportion inside without any of the staff or guards noticing, the prison probably has bigger problems to deal with than your escape attempt. But besides that, you'd then have to reach the roof with your gargantuan letter. Again, completely unseen by anyone. Then, when you're up there, push the eye over the edge and let it fall across the gap between the building and the outer wall, which obviously then you'd use to walk across, climb down on the other side, and you're free. But like I mentioned, this one is so outlandishly impossible that I just couldn't justify placing it any higher in this list, or you guys would probably start threatening me in the comments. I'd probably get put in jail myself. Number 7. A. A stands for ambitious, and funnily enough, that's exactly what this choice is. If you get high enough, the shape of this letter actually works as a very crude parachute. Wait, hang on a minute, didn't we already do a video about that? Alright, whatever, get ready to do a big leap, because we're gonna need distance here. Those prison walls are looking pretty high, but after a run up, you jump from the roof and hold onto the sides and hope that the wind cooperates. In the best case scenario, you drift gently over the wall and land somewhere outside the prison grounds and walk it off all nonchalant. In the worst case scenario though, which is probably what would happen to you, the wind changes mid-direction and you glide straight into the administrative building. Yeah, explaining why you've just parachuted through the warden's office window is not a conversation you want to have. It's quite literally like trying to get out of school and then ending up in front of the principal. Number 6. C. C looks like it might be useful at first. It's curved and sharp at the ends, and it actually feels like a tool. In reality though, it behaves more like a farming implement. Think sickle rather than crowbar, which is great if you're into agriculture and you're planning to harvest crops in a prison garden. Unfortunately for you, that's not the aim here. It's actually getting out of prison, if you remember, not collecting grain. So stop doing that. Try instead making your target that steel door over there. I think it might lead to the exit. Yeah, see how it doesn't have much effect? You're like a needle trying to puncture a coin. It's never going to happen. At this rate, you better hope that they're offering early parole for the most well-kept field. You'd win by a country mile and be home in no time. Number 5. V. V is one of the first letters here that actually does something useful. The point at the bottom concentrates great force in a small area, which means you can drive it into the ground like a makeshift pneumatic drill. Repeated strikes in rapid succession could eventually break through the concrete or stone. Unfortunately, whilst you were having so much fun tunneling, you completely disregarded the unbelievably thunderous amount of noise you're making. A tool like this announces itself loudly. The guards will know exactly where you are within seconds of you starting. If, however, whether you happen to be placed inside a prison with the world's most chronically deaf prison guards, you run into the other issue, which is direction. Yeah, okay, hi, you with the drill, can you just cut that out for a second? Okay, thanks. Did you ever stop to look around where you're actually going? I don't know if you're aware, but a couple more meters and you're about to become incinerated by falling into the molten core of the earth. And it's not as if you can get back out of where you are. So, well done, mate. You traded a cozy prison cell for a boring small pit. Number 4. L. L requires teamwork and, let's say, questionable physics. You balance it on its corner so it forms a seesaw. Now, here's the difficult part. You have to befriend one of the inmates. I know, making friends, that's terrifying, right? But you can't just make friends with any inmate. He's got to be fat, like the biggest guy you can find. Maybe offer him some of your food, that ought to work. If you can manage that successfully, then you now need to convince him to jump on the other side of your L-shaped seesaw. And the moment that heavy guy jumps, the opposite side launches you into the air. Now, in theory, this could fling you high enough to clear the wall, but theory will only take you so far, and in practice, the angle actually sends you directly into the wall itself. It's a spectacular attempt, don't get me wrong, but it ends with you sliding down the bricks and reconsidering your life choices. Number 3. U. This one also has the potential for great injury. It also involves a lot of collection, kind of like a squirrel. So first what you've got to do is gather up as many rubber bands as possible, which might involve repeated trips to the art class or a surprisingly intense craft program in the rec room. Now, once you've collected enough, tie those bands to the tips of the U and suddenly you've got a giant slingshot. So step into the middle, pull everything back and release. You're definitely going to leave the prison yard and very quickly, probably going to break the sound barrier whilst you're at it. The landing is another matter. This method prioritizes distance over comfort. There's no telling where you end up. Could be a meadow full of lovely daisies, or it could be a crocodile pit. Side note, that last one is particularly likely if you went to jail in Florida. Number 2. H. H is the classic ladder strategy. If several inmates manage to sneak in their own H letters into the yard, the pieces can be assembled quickly into a tall climbing structure. All you've got to do is wait for outdoor activity time, and then just after you finish playing hopscotch and tag, move the pieces out from under your uniform and build the ladder whilst the guards are distracted. I hear there's an Australian prisoner doing some breakdancing, and it's something to behold. That should keep them busy for a while, and the moment the ladder is tall enough, everyone climbs. Speed matters here, because the plan only works whilst no one is paying attention to you. If it goes smoothly, you're over the wall before anyone realizes what's happening. But if you're a bit slow and the snipers start firing lethal rounds at you mid-climb up the ladder, then it's probably time to get a move on. Number 1. T. T wins because it's simple and reliable. The shape works perfectly as a pickaxe. You grip the long section, swing the crossbar into the wall, and keep going until something breaks. It doesn't need power, it doesn't rely on wind, and it doesn't require any complicated construction. It's not quick, but it's dependable. Prison escape stories have been using this approach for decades, and there's a reason for that. It's because it works.